Often in life, people do things that make them look foolish to everyone around them, yet they never realize it's happening. They think they're being confident, honest, or simply keeping it real. But psychology tells a different story. Certain behaviors instantly expose a weak mindset, emotional immaturity, and a lack of self-awareness. This doesn't mean the person is unintelligent. It means they've kept repeating habits that basic life experience should have corrected long ago. Nobody is born knowing everything, and mistakes are part of growing. But when someone refuses to learn from experience and keeps repeating the same immature behaviors, they slowly damage their own reputation. Fake confidence can hide flaws for a while, but the truth always surfaces eventually. True intelligence isn't just about facts or books. It's about how a person manages themselves, treats others, and processes difficult moments. The habits below aren't rare exceptions either. They show up constantly, in offices, in friend groups, in family arguments, and online, which is exactly why they're worth naming clearly instead of quietly tolerating. One of the clearest signs of a lack of awareness is speaking with total certainty before actually understanding a situation. Foolish behavior often looks like rushing to share loud opinions before gathering enough information. A person hears one detail, sees one side of a complicated story, and jumps straight to a firm conclusion, as if certainty itself proves intelligence. In reality, it proves the opposite. A sharp mind slows down before judging, gathers context, asks thoughtful questions, and leaves room for complexity. Jumping into a strong opinion with little understanding doesn't look bold. It looks careless and lazy, and it's a habit that quickly makes people stop taking someone seriously. Staying quiet and listening isn't weakness. It's a quiet strength that prevents embarrassing mistakes and pointless conflict, and it often earns more respect in a room than any confident sounding guess ever could. Another obvious sign is a total lack of control over emotional reactions. People who end up looking foolish let every feeling become visible immediately. A little anger turns into shouting, insecurity turns into a bad attitude, discomfort turns into mocking others, and jealousy turns into unnecessary criticism. They mistake loud, aggressive reactions for strength, when really it makes them look weak and easy to provoke. If every small trigger can completely change someone's behavior, it means their emotions are running the show instead of their judgment. Genuinely mature people still feel things deeply: anger, sadness, frustration. But they don't obey every emotion as if it's an order. They create a small pause between what they feel and what they choose to do next. And that pause is where real self-control lives. Without it, a person becomes someone nobody trusts to manage their own mind. Over time, people around them start walking on eggshells, not out of respect, but out of exhaustion, which is the opposite of the authority that loud reactions were supposed to earn in the first place. People lacking self-awareness also tend to try far too hard to look important, which is one of the easiest signs to spot and one of the most uncomfortable to watch. Instead of building real substance, they put on a performance, dropping names of people they barely know, exaggerating small achievements, and constantly steering conversation toward money, connections, or how smart they think they are. It comes across forced because it's driven by a hunger for validation that's louder than their actual worth. Psychologically, this pattern almost always comes from insecurity and a sense of inner emptiness. Someone with genuine depth and success rarely feels the need to announce it. Their character speaks for itself. The harder someone works to look wealthy, important, or brilliant, the more clearly they reveal how insecure they actually are, and that kind of performance rarely fools anyone for long. It tends to push good people away instead of drawing them closer, because the people worth keeping around are usually the first to notice when a performance is covering for something hollow underneath. Another habit that exposes a weak thinker is mocking what they don't understand. When something feels too complex or unfamiliar, instead of getting curious, they point, laugh, and dismiss it as weird, useless, or overblown. This reaction is a defense mechanism. It exposes their own limitations far more than any flaw in whatever they're mocking. A genuinely intelligent person might end up disagreeing with a new idea, but they try to understand it first and keep their mind open to new possibilities. A foolish person skips that step entirely and jumps straight to rejection, using mockery as a shield against feeling challenged or inadequate. In the end, people who constantly ridicule things they can't grasp usually reveal a lot more about their own ignorance than about the thing itself. Refusing to learn and laughing at new ideas isn't a sign of a cool personality. It's simply fear of stepping outside a small comfort zone. Curiosity takes more courage than ridicule ever will, because curiosity means admitting there's something you don't yet know. The deepest and most brutal sign of all is never noticing one's own negative patterns. People who look foolish tend to repeat the same mistakes, get the same bad results, and still find a way to blame everyone except themselves. The same bad decisions, the same explosive reactions, the same senseless arguments, and the same tired excuses keep cycling, yet they never sit down for honest reflection or adjust their behavior. Intelligence was never about being perfect. Everyone messes up. The real difference is that intelligent people eventually study the pattern behind their failures and ask why the same problems keep happening to them. A person who never connects their own behavior to its consequences stays trapped in an endless loop. And the longer they stay stuck, the more obvious that pattern becomes to everyone around them, tragically. The only person who can't see it clearly is the one actually living it, which is why outside feedback, even when it stings, is often the fastest way to break the cycle. None of these habits create just one embarrassing moment. They reveal how a person handles the reality of life as a whole. They show whether someone thinks before speaking, regulates their own emotions, craves approval, or actually learns from their own story. Being seen as foolish rarely comes down to a lack of facts or a failed test in school. Far more often, it comes from stubbornly refusing to correct habits that keep exposing a weak mind. People caught in these patterns usually believe others are simply judging them unfairly, without realizing that their own repeated behavior is supplying the exact evidence for that judgment. Reacting too fast, talking too soon, showing off too much, mocking too easily, and repeating bad patterns without learning from them. All of it adds up. Over time, these daily choices build a reputation that no amount of apology or empty words can easily repair. Reputation, unlike a single bad day, is built from repetition, and repetition is exactly what these habits provide. Life offers endless chances to learn and grow, but mostly to people willing to slow down and pay attention. Those who insist they're always right rarely move forward. True wisdom comes from learning to keep the mind open and the mouth closed until it's genuinely time to speak. Listening invites a real sense of peace, one that protects against pointless arguments and exhausting drama. Once words leave someone's mouth, they can never fully be taken back, which is exactly why thinking deeply before speaking is one of the most valuable skills a person can develop. Controlling your tongue and your temper means you've already won half of life's battles. Everyone carries a different perspective shaped by their own unique journey. And disagreement doesn't make someone an enemy or make them stupid. A wise person respects other viewpoints just as much as their own, understanding that assuming automatic correctness is its own kind of foolishness. True value was never found in expensive clothes or loud bragging. It's found entirely in how people treat others, especially those who can offer nothing in return. Stepping away from the modern obsession with showing off means learning to live grounded in reality instead of appearances. The fake shine of trying to look important fades quickly, but the quiet strength of honesty and humility lasts far longer. Accepting flaws and working on them silently builds a kind of confidence that nobody can tear down. Being seen as foolish isn't a permanent condition. It's simply a collection of habits held onto out of laziness or stubborn pride. The moment someone recognizes these patterns in themselves and makes a firm decision to change, they step onto a path toward becoming wiser, calmer, and more respectable. Life stays entirely in a person's own hands, and the small adjustments made today shape a much better tomorrow. Instead of wasting energy judging others or trying to prove intelligence, that energy is better spent on quiet personal growth. In the end, it's consistent, thoughtful, and kind behavior that leaves a lasting mark on the world, long after the words themselves are forgotten. None of this requires a dramatic overhaul overnight. It just requires noticing one habit at a time, choosing to interrupt it, and letting that small choice compound into something people eventually come to trust.